All right, you guys, welcome to Boss Bitch Radio. If you are new here, welcome. I love you. If you're on the YouTubes, stop, drop, and subscribe. Please. Thank you. I love you. All right. Well, today we have another amazing guest, Laura Heikkila from the Ageless Women's Society. She was super fun to interview, you guys. This is another woman doing the work. All right. Meaning we are spreading the message about women over 40 doing the things. So she's helping break the stigma around women aging and perimenopause, menopause, all that fun stuff. When we are struggling in that space, she is the woman you want to listen to. You want to check out her YouTube and Instagram. But in today's episode, we discussed in length her story, how she came to be spreading the message of Women's Ageless Society, and her YouTube and her Instagram are robust with tons of information, lots of free stuff. We talked about her journey into group classes and over cardioing to weight training, essentially what she lays down as a foundation for clients who come to her struggling with hormonal issues. And we talked a lot about lifestyle factors. And also we did dabble in some discussions around hormone replacement therapy, because, you know, I'll be talking about that all the time over here on the podcast. So I'm going to let you into the episode. Listen up, go follow her, and let me know what you think. So I would love for you to just start by sharing with us essentially what brought you to where you're at right now with the Ageless Women's Society, the work that you do, and your story.
Okay. So I was an insurance agent actually for about 25 years, and I owned my own insurance agency. And I got to a point where I was getting just really burnt out on that. And it also was a time where I was needing to make a big life change to come I had to move from Idaho to California to take care of my parents that were getting older. And so at that time, I was just done with the whole insurance thing and decided that when I moved that I was going to make a career change. And so my husband was like, I want you to do something that you really love. And so that's how I got started in the health and fitness field. So I was not even into health and fitness at all until after I had my daughter, which was about like 35 years old. So, and I started, kind of doing a little bit of working out and learning a little bit about nutrition, but you know how that goes. As time goes on, you start to learn more and more. And so I started off by just going and getting my personal trainer's certification. And then I opened a little studio here in Southern California, and I was doing a lot of that. And then I started to get really kind of more into holistic health. So I went back and got my yoga certification. I went back and got my holistic health practitioner certification. And then while I was doing that, I entered perimenopause. I was probably already in it before, but like I got into the real like deep part of it where I was really starting to experience, like it felt like overnight. Like I was like, what is going on? Like I woke up one day and looked in the mirror and I was like, where did this body come from? Because I've been working out, I've been doing all these, all the right things, but things were just changing and I was having a lot of symptoms. And so when that happened, I really decided to just like do as much research as I could to figure out like, why is this happening? How does a woman's body, change? I, got a bunch of labs run. I started, I tried working with a naturopath, and I just felt super frustrated by the information that was out there. And even the help that I was getting from a naturopath, I just felt like nobody was giving me the right answers. And so when I finally kind of got it all figured out and I started seeing like positive changes in how I was feeling in my body, and I was again starting to, lean out again and build muscle and do all of those things, then I started kind of recording my journey on Instagram, never really knowing what I was where it was going to go or what I was going to do with it. And then women started reaching out to me and they were like, what are you doing? How did you do it? How did, and that's where I started seeing that, wow, there's like a real need for this. And that's how I ended up, creating the Ageless Women's Society and I, in a coaching program to help women through the whole perimenopause to menopause to postmenopause.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So it sounds like it was pretty organic. So people just
Yeah.
reached out to you. And I love that. And I think just like on a business talk side of things, it's really great when you like build the boat as you go, right? You're like, oh, people are
Mm-hmm.
asking me for this thing. I guess I need to focus on that and start talking about that. And then you become essentially kind of
Right.
like, an expert in your little space of the internet, which I think is
Yeah.
remarkable.
And
And
it
you've been,
keeps happening because even
yeah.
now, like for me, now I'm like postmenopause. And so I'm experiencing all these new things that were different
Hmm.
than perimenopause that now I have to go, I'm going back now, going, okay, now here's the next step because
Hmm.
now I've experienced this next thing in life.
Yeah, yeah. Now, when you work with women in, let's say, the perimenopausal sort of realm in their journey, what do you usually see as far as like the reoccurring problems they're having in that sort of time space?
Okay. So what I see a lot there is there's so much of a fluctuation in your hormones during perimenopause. And due to this, a lot of it is due to the fact that one, just going into perimenopause puts stress on your body.
Mhm.
But then it's also just a stressful time, I think, in life for women like your 40s. You're usually you have like many of us have like teenage kids. We're
Yeah.
juggling like a career. We've just got like all of these things going on. And so you compile all those things along with these changing hormones. And it's just kind of like the perfect storm.
Mhm.
And women just start to experience, so many things from, either brain fog or lack of energy or low libido, or maybe they start having hot flashes. Or one of the biggest things I see is like just poor sleep, which then, like just kind of
Yeah.
snowballs into the rest of your life.
Hmm.
And, just really a lot of PMS symptoms. Some women struggle with heavy cycles and which, again, impacts your energy levels, your workouts,
Hmm.
all of those type of things. So I would say perimenopause is probably the hardest part of the transition for most women.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely have I mirror that same experience with the clients that I work with, just in the online coaching capacity where they're presenting these kinds of symptoms and things. And I'm like, oh, looks like we're around that time.
Mm-hmm.
What is your usual, I would say, like go to in terms of recommendations for women when they're approaching this time period?
So most important things I think are eliminating stress or what your body perceives as stress. You can't eliminate stress out of your life.
Hmm.
But sometimes women are doing so many things that are adding to the stress during perimenopause. So they're either under eating because, they're maybe starting to gain a little bit of weight. So they start, severely cutting their calories, or they're over exercising. They're
Hmm.
just, they're concentrating on too much cardio or really, long cardio sessions.
Hmm.
Or they are not getting enough sleep, or
Yeah.
they're fasting for too long. They're just doing things that are taking an already stressful situation in life and they're adding more stress to their body. And anything we know that our body perceives as stress is going to, it's going to impact our weight, it's going to impact our hormones. So that's the first thing is I kind of focus on that. But um, closely hand in hand to that is nutrition,
Hmm.
because if you don't have the nutrition part right, it doesn't matter everything else that you're doing.
Hmm.
You're still going to struggle with issues as far as weight gain and energy and all of those things.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. As far as the nutrition piece of things, what are the biggest mistakes you see nutritionally when it comes to this demographic? And it probably leads into menopause and postmenopause as well, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
as a whole.
Okay. One, I work with way more clients, and you probably find the same thing, that are under eating than
Yeah.
that are overeating. I think that, again, I go back to like women fasting for too long,
Hmm.
especially women who are trying to, you know, they're they're doing heavy weightlifting sessions, they're doing, HIIT, they're doing all these different things, but they're not even fueling their body for any of those things. I think that most women undereat and protein way too
Hmm.
much. And I think that women are far too scared of carbohydrates. They just need to understand the right carbohydrates that they need to eat and how to time those and, how to make them work for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think just to kind of go back to what you were saying was the fasting, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's become so popular. And I think just at least back, I don't know, maybe early 2000s, late 90s, I just remember, oh, skip breakfast, keep,
Mm-hmm.
avoiding your meals and pushing them off. And I was guilty of intermittent fasting for several years, and just reading all of the negative side effects that it has specifically for women in terms of just hormonally. Do you see a lot of that coming in, and how do you help these women break that mindset?
Yeah, I see a lot of it coming in. And, I just tell them, like, what you've been doing so far obviously isn't working. So give this a chance. Okay. Let's give it a chance. Let's see how it feels. And usually within the first week of their check-ins, they're like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. Like,
Yeah.
or, they either their performance is so much better, they have less brain fog, or they're not having that afternoon crash
Hmm.
because they starve themselves all day, and then come 3 or 4 o'clock, they've maybe only had one meal and their energy just takes a dive.
Yeah.
So, when I'm working with people, I want them to have an open mind to what I'm suggesting to them, understanding that all these other things that they've been trying to do, it's not getting them to where they want to be.
Right. Yeah. And it does take a lot of coaching, I feel like, to
Mm-hmm.
break down that fear, because there's a lot of fear with eating more food means I'm going to go backwards, right? I'm going to gain more weight and
Right.
and all these things. But it is incredibly transformative when women start to realize that they need to look at their food as fuel and nourishment and less as like, you know, just calories in, calories out, right? Like the food as a whole is super important. And in terms of
Yeah.
macronutrients, definitely as well.
Yeah. I think the whole calories in, calories out during perimenopause and menopause is there's more to it than just
Right.
that,
Right.
because it's how our body, handles the type of food that we're eating and how it
Hmm.
reacts to those, different type of foods. So yes, do we need to be in a calorie deficit? Yes, but there's a lot more that comes into to play, with that too. And for so many
Yeah.
women, they've been in a calorie deficit just way too long that
Hmm.
they're obviously their metabolism has just adapted
Yeah.
to that, and that's a whole nother, a
A
whole
whole
nother
nother
issue.
podcast. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. Now, when it comes to working with women who come to you initially and they're experiencing a lot of these symptoms, do you usually recommend that they go have blood work done or look at maybe some hormone replacement therapy, anything along those lines? Because I know that is something that, at least in my experience with people that reach out to me, we talk a lot about hormones on the podcast, and I talk about how it's done remarkable things for myself and clients. Excuse me, but I know there's a lot of resistance around that. There's a lot of resistance, I feel.
Yes,
Yeah.
there is. And yes, that is one of I kind of take my clients through different steps.
Hmm.
And the hormone part is one big step in it, because it, not even just like our sex hormones, which obviously are declining, because of perimenopause and menopause, but also like cortisol and
Hmm.
thyroid and insulin and all of those hormones too. I do give like a recommendation to my clients in the beginning of the program of a list of labs I suggest getting.
Hmm.
But then I also I have them fill out an in-depth like questionnaire about their symptoms. And I kind of look at both, because like the labs are a snapshot of just that day, especially
Hmm.
when you're in perimenopause, because it's just like, like this.
Yeah.
But symptoms can tell a lot about what's happening all of the time. And so based on kind of those, after looking at those two things, then I'll give my clients recommendations
Hmm.
about like, okay, let's try these lifestyle changes. Let's maybe add in some of these supplements. Or if it's a point where I look at it and I think, okay, you're in menopause, you're not going to you have no estrogen left in your, body. You're probably not going to be able to bump those numbers up to where you're going to feel, well enough. Then I'll give them some talking points, like to talk to
Hmm.
either their doctors about hormone replacement, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Or if their doctors are unwilling to, then I have a company, Amazing Meds, that I work with and can refer people over to get the help they need.
I love that. I love that you have such a great process with that. Now, when it comes to traditional doctors, traditional medicine, what are you finding on your end? Because I know what I deal with when I have clients who are, well, I went to my doctor and they said, I don't need this and I don't need that. And this is all a waste. And I mean, I've heard everything under the sun. What is your experience with that?
I mean, I can just tell you my own personal experience is I a lot of times I just get my own labs run, and I know how to read them and all of that. And so I've been doing that. I went through menopause. It's been like almost 2.5, almost 3 years. And so I've been running my labs, every 6 months or so throughout that period of time. And as I've seen my levels decline more and more, the further I'm post-menopause, I started, kind of getting a little bit more concerned. I really went through menopause pretty easily, pretty minimal symptoms. But I started getting a little bit more concerned about some of the other things, like my brain health. Both my parents have Alzheimer's, my bone health. My mom had osteoporosis. So those things were kind of a little bit, of a concern as I started to see that my estrogen was just declining and declining. And so I went to my doctor with my own labs and said, like, here's my labs, here's my concerns. And I was working with it was just a nurse practitioner that I saw that day. And I was explaining to her all of my concerns. And she literally looked at me and said, gosh, I said, do you think I should go on some hormone replacement therapy? And she's like, if you want to, I could probably prescribe it to you, but she's like, I don't know, it's up to you. And she goes, it just sounds like you know a lot more about hormones than I do. And I'm like,
oh, wow.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
So that's kind of where I ended up working with like a telemed company, because I just felt like, okay, I need to work with somebody who specializes in this, and I could get, all the right answers that I was looking for.
Yeah. And I say the same thing to my clients as well. It's choosing the path of a practitioner that has a lot of experience with hormones, and that is their focus, is a game changer. It's a game changer. It has been for me and a lot of my clients. Now, when it comes to your journey with hormone replacement therapy, what are your, I guess, pros and cons to that? Like when someone's asking you, well, what do you think? What should I do? What do you usually suggest as far as that goes?
So I just started on hormones. It's only been about 6 or 7 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
Yeah. So I really held out on it, because I just wasn't, it was kind of the same thing like when I had my child. I held out as long as I could before I did the epidural. I was like, I'm going to do this as much, I can do this without. And I really did hold off like quite a while, just taking time, doing the research. And probably the reason why I did is because I didn't have a lot of symptoms. Had I had a lot of symptoms, I probably would have started looking into it, a lot sooner. But so the one thing I was really nervous about, because I see so many women, I work with so many women on hormone replacement therapy, and I've seen the negative side effects, and I've also seen the positive ones. And so I was nervous about some of the negative ones that, I've seen. And number one being, I know this sounds very vain, but weight gain. Like I was concerned, I did not want to go on hormones and then all of a sudden, be gaining weight. It really goes against, what, I'm trying to promote, I'm trying to help women, so I really wanted to like be able to understand, like, how can I do this and not that, and have that not happen. That way I can help other women to understand how they could do this and maybe that wouldn't happen. So what I learned in the girl that I'm working with there at Amazing Meds was that she's like, we're going to start you off really slow. Like what happens sometimes is when doctors prescribe, or people who maybe aren't really sophisticated in it, they will prescribe way too much all at once. And so what's happening is you take somebody who barely doesn't have enough hormones in their body, and then you're all of a sudden throwing a bunch of hormones in their body, and their body reacts by usually, gaining some water weight, because it's almost like your body's like, oh my gosh, I have hormones now. Like, am I supposed to get a period? Am I supposed to, so you start like, and so that's kind of what can happen. And so what I learned was, okay, start off slowly and slowly increase the amount as needed, so that you can kind of get your body used to the hormones.
Yeah.
And so far that's worked really effectively for me, because I haven't had any weight gain or really any negative symptoms from them.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah. Now, when you say you didn't have many symptoms, so you held out, do you think that was directly related to essentially what you preach, right? Which is setting all those, lifestyle factors.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I even tell women, like, if you do decide that you want to go on hormone replacement therapy, that's great, but you still need to fix those underlying factors first, because if you don't, you're still going to have a lot of those things. Like hormone replacement therapy is not it's a Band-Aid. I mean, it's like, it's not, you have to fix the underlying things so that the hormones work properly.
Right.
Because you're going to still have the same issues that you had before. And so you still need to address your nutrition, your gut health, your liver health, your stress, all of those things in order for those hormones to work properly for you.
Exactly. I've been talking a lot about how we're so fixated on the symptom without actually fixing the root problem, right? Like the nutrition and all the lifestyle things. It's like, oh, just give me the thing that's going to fix all my problems. But if you're still doing all of the foundational things improperly, it's going to be an uphill battle for sure when it comes to trying to correct your hormones. I agree.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know you do talk, just to shift gears a little bit. I know you talk a lot about muscle building over 40. Now, it sounds like you came from more of a HIIT-based, cardio-based lifestyle and then transitioned into weight. I'd love to know your journey with that.
Yeah. So, when I started in my, so I was about 35. It was after I had my daughter, and I was kind of like, okay, like looking at my body, and I'm like, I think I have to do something now. Like, I just not going to stay naturally like this. So, I just didn't even really, I went to the gym, didn't really know what to do. So I just started going to some classes, like a boot, or what was that, body pump class, which had some weight, but that really, doesn't really allow for progressive overload or anything. Step class. I just did these different classes in the beginning. And then I did that for a while. Then kind of in my 40s, I kind of got a little bit more into more of a HIIT, type strength. And I did well with that for a while. But I really when I really decided that I wanted to really make some changes, like to my body composition, I decided I was going to join a gym and focus on pure strength training. I do very, very limited cardio. Not that I'm like 100% against some, certain types of, cardio for certain people. If they're not already under a bunch of stress, but I mainly focus on like steps, walking, like, I'm very active, but, I added in strength training towards my late 40s, like really working, like really understanding and working on progressive overload. I never even really knew what progressive overload was before. And you can't really practice that in HIIT workouts or body pump workouts or things like that. So once I started to do that, and I got my nutrition dialed in with it too, like I stopped being so afraid of eating carbs. I upped my protein, all of those things. I allowed for more rest. That's what really made the big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's great to see the metamorphosis from like tons of cardio, lots of group classes, and which I'm always like, okay, I'm glad you're doing something.
Right.
But we've had numerous clients come in. I've been in business for 17 years. And over the course of this, I have seen women on the spectrum of over exercising 6 to 7 days a week. I mean, I'm a bodybuilder, so I know this too, right? Like I've been there in the gym 2 to 3 hours a day, in the middle of a prep. But just for like normal general population of clients that are, doing CrossFit 5 to 7 days a week, and then they're going for runs and they're, doing a half marathon and all of these things together. And it's just more, 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 more. And it's the point of diminishing returns at that point. And a lot of times I get these women that come to me and they want to shift more towards bodybuilding, and they're almost in shock of how little they're doing with so much better return, right? They're not spending that much time and drilling down with tons of cardio, and I'm pulling back their steps because they're like trying to get 25,000 steps a day or something crazy. So it's great to see that you also found that with yourself personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And getting women to shift their mind to this is going to work for them, it's hard because they have it so ingrained in them that, they need to be avoiding carbs and doing all this cardio. I mean, we've just been like, I don't even know where it ever came from, but,
Yeah.
I just remember being taught that. And, and getting women to shift their mindset and trust the process is really hard. But I do find that there's more and more women like myself and you that are out there on social media that are, sharing this and showing the proof of it too,
Right.
which I hopefully helps to ease women's mind that they can, they definitely can make that transition. They're not going to gain a bunch of weight from, switching their focus.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do spend a lot of time on the podcast really trying to preach, stand on my soapbox, whatever you want to call it, about the fact that this process with muscle building and weight training is a long game. And I don't know if you find you get people who are impatient and I see it a lot because I have an actual, physical studio where we have women come in and they're like, well, I've been coming for 3 months and, nothing's changed. The scale says the same thing. It's the same. I can almost write a story. It's going to manifest the same way.
I know the story.
Right. And it's like, well, okay. And my first question is usually always, well, how's your diet been? Right. And then it's like, oh, well, I'm doing okay, and then we find out that that's the root of it. But what do you offer as far as advice to women that maybe you say differently than I do in terms of the process, right?
Right. So with me, I see it a lot because my initial program that, it's online coaching and the initial program is 8 weeks. So I think people go into it sometimes thinking like in 8 weeks, they're going to like look like me, by the end of the 8 weeks. And, I always have to, explain to people, like I'll say to them sometimes if they feel like they'll be like, well, it'll be 2 weeks in and they're like, oh, I'm just not happy about everything seems so slow. And they've already lost 4 pounds. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So I always explain to people, how long did it take for you to get out of shape? How long did it take for you to gain the weight? Well, I don't know. It happened over 2 or 3 years. We'll expect it to take just as long for you to get back to where you were at.
Right.
And you have to have realistic, expectations. You also have to have realistic expectations for what you're putting into it too. Like me, it's kind of my, and for you also, it's like kind of our job to look, so we probably spend maybe, or even have a little bit more time to spend in the gym than, some women who work a 9 to 5 and have to work out in the evening, that might just not have as much time to meal prep or do those things. So you have to have realistic expectations for what you're putting into it too. And I think that we just live in a society of just immediate gratification for everything. Everybody just wants a quick fix, the easy way, all of those things. And what women need to realize is it takes time. It's taken, me 20 years of working out, to get here. And it sounds like you've been doing this for quite a long time too. So we know it doesn't happen overnight. And the older you are, it's not that you can't do it, but we're also fighting with that aging process of that naturally losing muscle. So we're trying to build muscle when our body's, trying to do the opposite.
Right. Yes. I think you've made so many excellent points. And I think another thing that I've found that I'm also just trying to rewire our brains around a little bit is when we come from a background of these cardio classes, group classes, high intensity, calorie burn, I'm sweating, all the things, we get that instant gratification, right? We get the notification from our body that we're working hard because we're drenched in sweat and my calories on my watch say this thing. And trying to educate women that it's not that simple when it comes to changing the shape of your body and adding muscle. And it'd just be interesting. Did you experience that in the beginning when you shifted from like group classes to weight training, or did you kind of already know, like, okay, this is gonna be a process. Like I'm gonna be here, lifting is gonna be a totally change of pace.
Yeah. So when I switched, I already had some muscle on my body. It wasn't like, so it wasn't like I was starting from zero. But I always say to like my clients, I'm like putting on, muscle from, because I started in my late 40s to really, really start lifting, heavier. I'm like, it's like watching paint dry.
Damn right,
if you
girl.
don't take pictures and put them like side by side, you will sometimes think like, am I even, is anything happening here? So, but then you put pictures side by side and you're like, okay, all right, I can see the difference there. So yeah, it definitely is a slow process, but I always tell my clients too, you need to learn to love the process. Like to me, I love the process. I love the tweaks and everything and going, okay, well, maybe if I tweak my workout a little bit this way or do the, maybe that I'm going to feel a little bit, or I'm going to, and so I love the whole process of it. So I don't get bored with it and I don't get frustrated by it because I just enjoy it.
Right. And I think what you're saying is great because when you can view it from a wider lens than just like, what does my watch say? How many calories did I burn? Oh, this workout's not a good workout. Weight training is not a great workout or whatever. Then you can look at the little levers within your lifestyle, which is like tweaking little things in your workout or trying, different pre and post workout nutrition, or, you're just always sort of playing around with other, I guess, variables without changing the foundation of what it is that's going to make the biggest change.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Such good stuff. Now, when it comes to working with women who are newer to this, right? Like they're getting into fitness. I think I'm talking about this a lot now because at the time of this recording, at least the new year is right around the corner. And we get an influx of people who are hot and heavy and excited. And I always say they're more excited to start the program than to actually do the program.
Yeah. Exactly.
What are your thoughts on motivation and adherence for clients? Like, do you have any strategies, tips, hints, anything that works well, or just your own maybe mantras even are helpful sometimes?
Yeah. So as far as motivation, I a lot of times will tell my clients, find a picture of somebody who you can realistically, that has a similar body type to you. If you're, 5'2" and you're picking out pictures of models that are 6 feet tall, there's not a realistic, but find somebody who's a realistic body type to you, that, that has a body that you would feel, good about having and put that picture somewhere where you're looking at it every single day. Like, this is my goal, or it could be even a picture of yourself to get back to a place where you were maybe once before, but something that you are visually looking at every day. Or even if it's a thinking pair of jeans you want to be able to get back into, hang them somewhere in your closet where you're looking at. People need visual. They need visual, or they need to visualize constantly every day. You need to visualize like where you want to get to and how you're going to feel when you get there, so that you don't give up on, on your goals, because it's easy. It's easy to, to give up. None of us are motivated every single day. That's why I really try to help my clients establish good habits. Like we really work on habits, daily habits that we
Mm-hmm.
do every single day, because you're not going to be motivated every single day. But if you have these
Yes.
habits that you just do, I don't think about like, am I going to go to the gym today? No, it's in my calendar. 4 days a week. It's scheduled in there for a time for me to go. And I go, just like I would go if I had a dentist appointment and, it was in my calendar.
Right.
So, I try to teach my clients to establish, these things as just like any other appointments, any other things that you would do in your life to, get to where you want to be. Even like same thing in your career, you do certain things you do the same things, to get to where you want to be with your health and fitness goals too. So
Yes. So if I'm hearing you right, it's like building in those foundational habits that then create the discipline, and then you just do them even when you don't feel like doing them.
exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, which actually leads to my next question. What are your, and maybe not necessarily for your clients, or maybe it's a mixture of both, but what are your current like health and fitness non-negotiable habits? Like, for example, I make sure to get 10,000 steps a day, or I sleep 6 hours, those kinds of like foundational things. Do you have any like of your own personal non-negotiables, if you could?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I have any like non-negotiables. Like if I didn't do it, I'd beat myself up. But
Right.
I do try to get 10,000 steps every day. I'm not like going to walk around my living room until I hit the number if I'm a little bit off. But
Yeah.
most days I don't have a problem hitting it. Sleep is super important to me.
Mhm.
And that's where another reason where, hormone replacement therapy became a little bit more of
Mhm.
a good choice for me, because sleep is a really fundamental. Water, I mean, and I am a real stickler about getting my protein in.
Yeah.
So I really do try to, I get a little over 1 times my, body weight in protein.
Mhm.
Um, and I really try not to skip meals, because like blood sugar balance for me is super important, because I've
Mhm.
struggled with that a lot earlier in my life. And so it's
Mhm.
super important to me. I don't skip a regularly planned meal if I can try not to, because I just pay for it later in the day if I do that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Are you following like a certain dietary practice where I know some people are like, oh, I don't
Mm-hmm.
do, I'm gluten free or dairy free or anything like that.
Yeah.
And also, do you follow like a structured meal plan? Or are you macros, or are you just intuitive? I love to just kind of
Yeah.
know what women are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I like to show that
So,
it's not all one way, right?
right. So I do follow a very anti-inflammatory diet,
Mm,
but that's also not like a hard and fast. Like I'm not going to go, I would never eat gluten. But in general, I don't eat a lot of gluten or dairy or um, soy
mhm,
or seed oils. I try to watch like the things that could be a little bit more inflammatory. And so I always say I'm probably during the week, a 90 to 100% on track, and on the weekends, 70 to 80%, so I kind of do believe in living life with balance.
mhm,
I don't drink a lot of alcohol, but I will have the occasional like glass of wine on the weekend. We live in the wine country.
mhm,
And I I usually try to stick to like, I stick to about 4 meals a day. And now I'm a little bit more like I can eyeball it and know
mhm.
I have counted macros and weighed my food and done all of those things. I don't. When I do it, I can see even a better difference in my body composition,
Right.
but I just don't want to be that. If I was
Mhm.
going to step on stage, maybe I would be a little bit more, but I don't feel like I need to, be that stringent and with it. So I can pretty much eyeball and know like, okay, this is 4 to 5 ounces of protein, or this is about a half a cup of rice, or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, I'm right there with you. It's like over 10 years of tracking and things like that. And it was
Mm-hmm.
honestly a weird, and I don't know if you experienced this, but at first I was like, can I trust myself that I'm gonna know, and it was fine. The world didn't fall apart. And I think it just comes with time, and then it's just how
Yes.
you eat at that point. It's just how I eat. I just know that I'm looking for protein first. If I'm going to have a carb, what is it? And, if I need some fats and things like that in there too. But it just comes with, again, just doing it. And
yes. And it takes women a while to, I'm sure you sometimes look at like people's logs and, and how they're putting their meals together, and you can look instantly and see why they're not getting,
yeah.
results.
Yeah.
And, I do think it takes a while, and I've kind of tried to create my program that I have someone who do count calories or macros. And then I have some women that just, they don't want to, and and they just follow some of my other guidelines. And in either way, people are successful. But sometimes I find that if I'm not seeing success, with a client after a few weeks, I'm like, hey, let's just log your food for like a week and just see like what's going on. And I think that if somebody out there has never logged their food, that they should for a week or even a few weeks to really see, are you getting enough protein actually? Are you getting enough fiber in your diet? Are you eating enough calories? Like, where are your, deficiencies? What are you eating too much of? What I usually find with people is they're eating way too much fat. And even though fat is, healthy fats are good, they're like just going in abundant, of probably, where they need to be. So sometimes just, people logging for a few weeks, they can really get a real feel, or I can help them get a real feel for where they're, where they're off.
Yeah. No, it's incredibly helpful when clients track. And like you said, they realize, and even yourself and myself too, if I wanted to, drop 5 pounds or 10 pounds, I know immediately what I would need to tighten up. I'm sure we have doing this long enough, you realize it, but we get clients who are just completely have never done any kind of tracking. And, in first conversation, they eat good, this and that, or I only eat once a day. I hear that a lot too. And with some tracking and some further investigation, it's, oh, well, I forgot that my liquid calories count, right? I get that one often. They forget, and they're drinking loads of coffee with loads of creamers and, frappuccinos, all that stuff all day long. And then sodas, all those things. So it's a great way to just become very aware of what you're consuming, and then you can make changes from there, because so many people want to just slash right to 1,000 calories, especially with the new year. Just that's their thing. Like, I'm gonna just go 1,200 or 1,000. And it's like, you're not even sure what you've been eating. And you could probably have great results eating 2,000 calories because you've maybe been eating 4, and you won't be suffering, suffering is bad.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's a really great tool. Yeah.
Yes, it's a great place to start for sure.
Yeah. Now, kind of wrapping up here just a little bit, when it comes to your platforms, right? I know you have a great following on Instagram and YouTube. What do you feel like is your overall message or mission, or whatever it is that you want women to know that are over 40 right now?
I want women to know that they should never give up, that they can take back control of their body at whatever age they are. It's never too late to get started.
Love that.
You just need to get started.
This gives me the chills, because that's like what my whole podcast is about. It's like, just do the damn thing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the tagline for my business is take back control. It's like, and we can, because I feel like that's kind of in your 40s and stuff, you start to feel like you've lost control, and so I think, that women just need to feel like empowered, like you are the one who can take that control. So
most definitely
take the right actions, and you may know the right actions to take and you just need to do it, or you may need help with that. And that's where it comes to hiring a coach like yourself or myself, find somebody that's going to help you get there a little bit quicker, so you're not spinning your wheels.
Most definitely. And I think because the obvious, your body is the only place you have to live. It's when you have these things going on, it's not only affecting you physically, but it's affecting you emotionally and how you
Oh, yeah.
present yourself to the world and how you think
And
others
your
perceive you,
family and
all of the
your
things, right?
relationships. Yes.
It's so
Hmm.
interesting because you don't realize how directly linked that is until you start doing the work on yourself and essentially loving yourself to take care of your
Hmm.
body and the process that you're like,
Right.
oh, okay, I'm a nicer person
Exactly.
now.
Hmm.
You
I
know?
always tell my clients, and and I try to tell them on social media, it's not selfish to want to take care of yourself.
Mm-mm.
Like, you are actually making yourself a better person for everybody that's around you if you take care of yourself. And you're setting the best example for your children when
Yes.
you are, they're like, well, I don't want to, I don't want to take away from my children. No, you're actually adding to your children's lives by
Hmm.
showing them how to live a healthy lifestyle.
Agreed, 100% there. Now, can you share with us some of the amazing things that you offer in terms of working with women? I know you have some free, sort of goodies on your site as well for people to sort of get into your world. So I would love
Yeah.
to share that. And of course, we'll link it all up in the show notes in the description as well,
Okay.
too.
So, yeah, I do have some information on hormones and understanding your hormones. So I have a series on there, a 5-part like series of,
Hmm.
why you may be gaining weight and how it, has to do with your hormones. I also have a free hormone evaluation on there that
Oh,
people can
great.
fill out, and it is the same questionnaire that I use with my clients to help
Hmm.
determine, by symptoms what's going on. And then if people fill it out, I give them, back just a little feedback on what it looks like is going on with their hormones. Obviously, I would need to work with them more to know
Yeah.
for sure and delve into that. And then I work with women one on one. And I tried doing group coaching, and what I realized is that when it comes to perimenopause and menopause, just no two women are the same.
Yeah.
And so really one-on-one coaching it's just so much more valuable because we
Hmm.
can really get into what your root cause is, what your, what's going off the rails and what we need to, and what we need to fix. So my initial program is 8 weeks. And during those 8 weeks, it doesn't sound like a lot, but during those 8 weeks, I really teach them a lot, like
Hmm.
what they, all the foundation of what they need to know moving forward. And then I have a lot of women that stay with me month to month, after that for however long they feel like they need me. I mean,
Hmm.
I've had some women that have been with me for years just because they love the accountability and they love the access to me. But initially in that first 8 weeks, I really do teach women, you know, the whole foundations of what our body's like at this age
Hmm.
and what they need to continue to move forward. I teach them the nutrition. I have both home and gym workouts, all the tools that they need.
Hmm. I love that. So where can people find you? So website, Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff. Go ahead and plug it here. And then,
Okay. So
yeah.
the main place to find me would be Instagram, and my handle is at so this is 50, and it's so underscore this underscore is underscore 50. But I think if you just type in so this is 50, it'll still bring
Mhm.
it up. And then on Facebook, it is my page is Ageless Women's Society. My website is a little bit more difficult to find, but it's agelesswomensociety.com/home to get to the actual web page. And I am on YouTube also under Ageless Women's Society.
Wonderful. I love it. Just all kind of flows and it'd be easy to find you. Yeah, this was great.
Great.
This was so fun.
Thank you so
And
much for having me. I
yeah,
enjoyed our conversation so much.
yeah, me too. I appreciate you for coming on, and the work that you're doing is wonderful. I think it's great to come across other, influencers and people in the space that are working with women in this time that is very, very challenging, that feels
Mhm.
disorienting, and they don't know who to turn to if they don't have somebody who's gone through it. So thank you so much for your help. And yeah, I'll see you over on the interwebs.
Yeah, thanks.
All
Have a
right.
great
Bye,
day.
Laura. You too. Bye bye.
Bye.